Hello, folks from Employer Branding Stars community. I'm Barbara Zeig, and I'm the CEO of Employer Branding Institute and EBNavi, and I'm host for this podcast. And today with me, I've got Malcolm. He's going to introduce himself in a perfect way in a minute, but today this episode is cool stuff. I can't wait to see what Malcolm brings to us. And this is going to be about EVP, but not designing the EVP, which is very crucial for employer branding. But the even more crucial part, as I look at it, is how to sell the EVP through your channels like career website, recruitment campaign, and any other materials. So Malcolm is going to. Maybe I'm not going to share what you're bringing. So that's your piece. I don't want to steal it. So.
Hey, don't steal my thunder,
Because
Barbara.
this is really cool stuff you're bringing to us today. I'm really excited welcoming you, Malcolm. Please, if you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more. Why did you choose this topic? What are you bringing to us before we start, going to the real stuff?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Barbara. It's great to have the opportunity to have a conversation with you and to share some interest in your listeners. Basically, my business, we're an EVP, employer branding and HR advisory practice based out of Sydney, in Australia. We're about building first choice employers. So what we're trying to do is make the clients we work with, give them the capability to attract, recruit, and retain the people they need to achieve their goals. We work with governments, we work with large corporates. We also provide advice to small private companies. So we get a good handle on the purpose of employer value propositions being to build the capability of a business or an organization. And one of the things that I was very pleased to have the opportunity to talk to you about was I think the Employer Branding Institute is doing a good job of improving the awareness of what good employer branding and what good employee value propositions actually are and how they work together. There's a lot of people doing marketing. There's a lot of people talking about recruitment campaigns, but they're not employer branding. They're not employee value proposition, promotion or development or communication. It's literally marketing and it's selling an organization or an opportunity. And I wanted to try and look at things a little bit differently. And so what I'll be sharing today is I'm going to look at 5 different organizations and 5 different campaigns. Now, they're not one-off campaigns. These campaigns have endured. So one of the campaigns, so I'll be looking at Chevron, I'll be looking at Australia Post, I'll be looking at Canva, I'll be looking at Apple, and I'll be looking at Bain Co. Now, I've picked a cross-section, and I'm just going to give a little bit of a spoiler alert here just to start off with, because some of those are going to be trading on their brand. And some of them are going to be very externally focused. This is you're joining us because of our position in the world. Others are very much, you're joining us because you want to be part of us. And others are going to join, you're going to join the business or the organization because of what it's going to mean to you and what you can do. So there are very targeted campaigns and targeted areas of focus depending on the company. And it comes back to a basic, we call it a balanced triangle with employee value proposition work and employer branding. There needs to be balance between the market perception of what you offer as an employee, the leader aspiration, and the experience of employees. Right. And supporting that, you've got to then have creative imagery that is attractive. You've got to have messaging that's resonant, so people can relate to it. And then finally, you've also got to have leader behavior that allows employees and candidates to experience the brand that the organization wants to offer. And so I thought those 5 organizations across 5 different segments would actually provide a really good view into that.
Okay, can't wait to see them then. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Well, yeah.
All right. So can we already start the sharing those examples?
Yeah, let me share the screen.
Please do. Great.
All right. So as I said, I'm going to start with Chevron. And what what I think I really liked about Chevron is it's a very prominent campaign. So if you think about careers at Chevron, it's around who we are, culture, brands. You can talk about the leadership, talk about history. Um, it's very much the human energy company. And what really struck me with the campaign was how authentic it was, but also what we're seeing here is the chance for Chevron to influence the world. So when we talk about the culture and the brands and our leadership, there are some really interesting components about Chevron that we found quite attractive. It talks about values and action. That's not unique. But then it starts talking about how we influence the world. And we start to see people in energy. And that's what Chevron is starting to really latch onto. So it's not a campaign, it's a theme. It's humankind. Chevron volunteers, Chevron in the world. Again, we see this humankind component. It talks about what Chevron is doing in the world. So as you go through and look at the web page, as you start looking at careers pages, as you look at some other aspects of Chevron, you're starting to see that we're influencing the world. We're influencing energy in the world, and the people at Chevron have a job to do. When you look at the leadership, so that's the leader aspiration, Chevron obviously is a very, very large company. They do talk a lot about sort of what they do and how they work globally. But what's quite a nice touch is that it allows employees to see that not only are they expected to change the world, but they're being led by people who want to change things. So there's a lot of commentary here about what, in this case, Mike Wirth does. So he's been the chairman of the board since 2018. It talks about where he's been, talks about what else he does. But then it starts to talk about how not just what's happening with Chevron, but he starts talking about energy transitions. He looks at oil prices. And so what we're talking about here is somebody who has a role in the world, and we're actually seeing that play out. This is not unique, but what I found really interesting about this is it's so prominent. You don't have to go to the section called Newsroom to find out what Mike's been saying and what Mike stands for. If you want to know what Mike's about, you can follow him on LinkedIn, or you can see what he's been saying. And for us, that was a very powerful message, because being able to find out what the leaders are like is very, it's a very strong element of an employee value proposition, because it allows you to know what you're buying into in terms of the direction of the organization. When we start then looking at particular roles, that's when we also start to see some really interesting themes come through. But unfortunately, not necessarily for the right right reasons, I'll say. Because again, taking a step back, sustainability is a key point. We're moving towards a lower carbon future. Talks about who we are, being critical thinkers, collaborators, innovators. So there's a lot of positive words coming through here. And if you scroll through, it's very, very impressive. And then you look at a job advertisement. So Barbara, you were talking about how we produce information in channels. When you're talking about an employee life cycle, attraction is the sell piece, and recruitments. So the attraction bit, they're doing very, very well. So Chevron is showcasing what life is like at Chevron extremely well. But now we actually start to move into recruitment where there's a bit of interaction. And unfortunately, this is, I think, where this campaign does fall down a little bit, or this initiative falls down. They've got so much great stuff to say, and this just doesn't look like any effort was put into it. This looks like a job description that's been copied and pasted. There's no talk about what Chevron does in the world. There's no conversation here around what we're looking for you to do. It's just a list of job tasks, qualifications, skills, etc. And I think it's a missed opportunity. And we see that sort of framework irrespective of what sort of jobs you have. So whether it be professional or others, you can see that if we looked at the data architect, we can look at a legal analyst in Houston. It's quite dry. And as we'll see from some of the other job advertisements from some of the other websites we're going to have a look at, this really doesn't stand up, particularly given all of the work that's been done at the front of house. So I mentioned the imagery has to be attractive, the messaging needs to resonate, and the behavior of leaders has to give employees the experience they want. Here's where I think we know what the leaders want, but the messaging is missing, because you sort of almost have the impression that you're sitting here thinking, oh, okay, well, this is where I sit, and it's only the leaders that get to influence the world, which, as I said, I think is a missed opportunity.
Right. So I just wanted to comment on that, because I really, really love the first part. Like you said, attraction is the huge advantage of that, especially where I can easily connect and find CEO or C-level on LinkedIn and see they actually doing their job. This a small trick with the news just below the leaders. So that's cool. It's really nice. I don't like it, but as you said, it's such a pity they didn't go farther with the job descriptions. And actually, that's the point where when you're taking decisions, right? When you're just doing something, and that's the very end point we want to see. So, yeah, right. So, folks at Chevron,
So great campaign, great at the front. It's that longevity of the effort, and unfortunately, it's often the job advertisements that are the ones that. So when we do an EVP project, we develop a user guide, and we also often develop scripts. And when we do an employee value proposition to support a brand, we do a narrative. And one of the things we suggest is the narrative goes onto every single job description, and goes into every single job posting. So there's a continuity and a consistency around the message that's being sold. And this is something that I think Chevron would greatly benefit from, given all the fantastic content they've got earlier on.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
So another one.
Let's go.
Australia Post. Yeah, let's move on. Australia Post. What I like about this one is find your place. So Australia Post, just as a bit of a potted history, it previously was Australia's postal service, and it was a monopoly, government owned. It delivered all the parcels and all the letters. So obviously, we're now seeing a very different market. People don't tend to send letters anymore, they send emails. There's a much stronger parcel competitive market. So they don't have monopoly. They're only 51% government owned, I believe. So they're majority government owned, but they are still a company that competes with other private organisations. So they've got a real challenge in making in some of the frameworks in which they can operate. But I think they've done a terrific job of showcasing the breadth of roles that you can have in Australia Post. We did some research last year, and only about 10% of companies, and we looked at 140 different organisations across 10 sectors, only about 10% of companies actually showcased the breadth of their operations. And I think Australia Post has done a great job. And they've done it for a couple of reasons. A lot of companies talk about this. Oh, yeah, you can get a job in the road, in our warehouse, in digital tech. Australia Post has then said, so what that means to us is they've actually stipulated some roles. So there's no ambiguity around what that role would be, whether it be on the road, in the warehouses, in digital tech, with the customers, or in business support. So they don't leave anything to the imagination, and I think the openness of this is really, really powerful because it has a two-part benefit. Not only are you influencing the way that people think about jobs at post, as they call it, but you're actually thinking about what Australia Post does more broadly, and they're shaping the thinking. So it's helping employees realize the opportunities available to them, but it's also helping candidates realize that there are a lot more things than just delivering mail every few days. And so I think that's been a really powerful campaign because it also is changing the market perception of the organization. As a previously government-owned entity, people will have certain preconceptions about the type of jobs and the type of people that work there. And I think Post is doing a great job at showcasing what different roles can be in the organization. They talk about what happens, who we are, and then we start to hear some stories from all these different people in different places. And I really like this because it gives you a chance to get into and I call it under the hood of the business to see who's doing what where I could see myself, whether I can see myself as somebody who could be working in here, irrespective of my background and the type of work I want to do. It's a really good invitation to look around. Now, I spent quite a lot of time on this webpage because there was just so many interesting things to click on. And I would always encourage people to have a look at where they naturally find themselves being drawn to. And what I liked about this particular framework was that it wasn't hard to find things. For example, you see it coming all the way through, even into the jobs. Help us deliver like never before. So unlike Chevron, it doesn't just jump into this is what the job is. It sets a nice context. This is why this job's important to us. This is about the opportunity. This is the kind of things you're going to be doing. This is what we think the type of person that's going to suit this job is like. And this is what we're going to do back for you. So there's a really good values exchange here, which is an important part that I like to see flow all the way through. Because the other element of too many employer branding campaigns and too much of the employee value proposition work that goes out into the market, it's a lot of give, give, give. There actually has to be an exchange. You want to be able to have delivering value to the employee and gaining value from the employee. And that's the important thing to balance. However, one of the things that is a bit disappointing is when we start looking at the leadership team. As you saw, there's a lot of focus on diversity and inclusion, etc. But unfortunately, when you look at just the screenshot of the leadership team, there's not a lot of diversity in there. And we have found in our employment branding projects that this has been something that people have noticed. So what we sometimes suggest is make the team a little bit bigger, showcase tier 2 managers as well to showcase the diversity, because this is where it sort of lacks. And it can sort of jar up against this focus on having a great diverse workforce. However, what is interesting, and if we look at Paul Graham, it talks about Paul, it credentializes him, but it also talks about something that's not necessarily all work-based. So you're starting to get an understanding of Paul as a person. And you also see here some of the rationale for why he likes to be at Post. Trusting to connect Australians to each other and friends and family around the world. So there's that underlying purpose for him, which is something that can drive others to see him as a leader that they would like to follow. And this is where you would expect that the leader aspiration is that other people will take the same viewpoint. And that's where you can sort of start to see the experience of making sure that you stick to purpose if you're an employee with Post. And I think that's a very, very powerful message that can come from an employee value proposition perspective, but also a campaign specifically around the employment offering of Australia Post. My next one is Canva. So changing a little bit. And for those of you who don't know Canva, this is a design company. If you look through their webpage, just on careers to start off with, and I'm using the careers page probably as the anchor point, because most campaigns and most of the effort is spent on effectively the online real estate of companies, because it is the quickest and easiest way to get out to as many people as you possibly can with the information that you can control. What I like about this is it's quite true to purpose. So Canva is really around a campaign that is making designers of everybody. So what they're trying to do is they're saying to join our mission to empower the world to design. That's their motto. And in my introduction, I talked about companies that talk about their place in the world. Canva is one of those. You can look through, and it's a very good campaign that highlights what you're going to do in Canva in the world. There's lots about values. It's being a force for good. It's pledges. It's sustainability. And there's a lot of work around the different people at Canva. And you can scroll through and see different people and what they say. So you're starting to get a handle on what Canva people are like. There's a great component of Canva stories. So this is, again, Canva in the world. What's relevant for Canva? And what your relevance as a Canva, they call them Canvanauts, which is a nice play on astronaut, because when you think of an astronaut, it's someone who's gone where others haven't gone, or not many have gone. And that seems to be the underlying thinking with Canva. You're going to break new ground, do new things, make the world design capable. And this is something that we really liked about this campaign, because it's very clear about its purpose. However, one of the things that we did come across with Canva was it was hard to find out about the leaders. And that led us to think that, well, actually, it's not about the leaders. With Canva, it's about what you can do in the world. And so there was less of that in the website and in other forms of communication that come from the web page, such as job descriptions or news articles, etc. With the jobs, and again, okay, you like the business. Maybe let's see what sort of jobs there were. There's quite a few different ones. We selected the senior manager corporate accounting. It's a really lovely worded job description. It's really selling the opportunity of working at Canva. It's talking about the business. You're getting a real flavor for the organization. However, one of the elements that pervades this whole framework of employer brand is, I seem to think that Canva is very much preaching to the converted. So for people who know Canva and potentially like the company and may be looking for a job, Canva are playing on that there are certain type of people who will just want to work with Canva. And when we talk about an EVP or an employee value proposition or an employer branding campaign, it's part magnet, part sieve. So Canva's challenge is to make sure that it's attractive to the right caliber of people that are going to help it achieve its goals. And it's not going to be for everybody. But they've done a very good job of setting out what life is like at Canva, what's expected of you, and what you'll get in return. So we found this a very, very strong campaign that, yes, it does trade on the Canva name. It does trade, particularly in my part of the world, it trades very strongly on the unicorn status of Canva and how they're going financially, how they're expanding globally, and how successful they are as an organization in terms of how people just love to use the product. I'm a user of the product. I didn't do anything with the employee value proposition or employer branding campaign or framework of Canva, but I use their tools all the time, and they are a fantastic addition to my organization. And they're trading on that. They're an organization that has an aspirational employment offering, and I think they've done a very good job of taking things all the way through. And when you think about the strength of this brand, it really does hold on to people as well. And I think that as an example of a strong campaign that has enduring benefit, but also depth, because you're seeing it not just at the career page and in some of the posts, but you're actually seeing it all the way through to a job advertisement. You've got people who will have a singular experience and a consistent experience right throughout the recruitment process, and most likely throughout the whole employee life cycle, beyond onboarding to development engagement, and even if they leave, to offboarding. And extending the idea of trading on the name, the next one's Apple. I love this video. Join us, be you. And if you watch it, there's an apple for everybody. And this is a very different perspective. So Apple is talking about your place in Apple. It's not talking about Apple's place in the world, which is quite a different perspective that you get from Canva and potentially even Chevron. What Apple is really doing is inviting you to be part of their ecosystem, which is a very powerful message, again, for those that are part of the converted and who love Apple products. Belonging is everything. So it's being part of us. And that's a very strong theme that comes all the way through everything that Apple does. There are some great images. There are some great examples of diversity in the employees. There's talk of Apple family. There's lots of really good imagery and multimedia on the careers page, which really gives you a sense of what's behind the products. Again, people who work for Apple are likely to be initially, according to this campaign, because it doesn't really talk a lot about what Apple does. It talks about what you can do. It's playing on people understanding the name of the organization and the recognition of that brand, which is very powerful, inspiring, inspirational, values. We're a modern company. We talk about environment, social governance, being a responsible organization. However, one of the things that I do find that Apple sometimes will fall victim to is the reality of the day-to-day. So we've picked up a job ad on their Apple website, AU specialist, full-time or part-time. So you can do this role in any number of ways. So it's flexible. So it's accommodating and allowing a much broader set of people to engage with the company. it's not being too prescriptive around the qualifications. It talks a lot about attitude. And so you're starting to see that play through. Okay, we're not looking at what you've done. It's what you can do with us. However, one of the pieces that comes back and does remind people that we're a technology company that needs to move technology units is we can do a whole range of things, but your success is measured by team and individual productivity and store performance. It's how many units you move. And if you look at what some people are saying about working at Apple, we've taken this from Seek, which is a job board here in Australia, just as an example. And it's not necessarily representative of Apple across the globe, but we have 181 reviews, and people are saying a variety of things. There are good things and bad things. There are a few themes that come through that you do need to be a little bit more dedicated to Apple than potentially you would otherwise to other organizations. But even the poorer results still talk to a high rating. So one of the things that Apple needs to do is in the recruitment side of their employee value proposition is make sure that, okay, you can belong here. We've got some great inspirational stories, but you've still got to perform. So if leaders and managers are not making sure that they set that expectation up front, they're likely to have people who don't realize that there is an offer and an expectation. The offer is you get to work with our organization in this great environment with all these benefits, working with an iconic company, but we actually need you to sell units or achieve what you need to do, because there are only so many designers and creative types that can work in a company like Apple. Everyone else has to move technology off the shelves. And that's where some of the disconnect can sometimes arise between that promise at front of house and the experience at back of house. And it can be quite challenging for people who have an expectation of having a wonderful experience that doesn't quite live up to that expectation when they start having to deliver on their numbers, as it were. My final case study is Bain Company. Not just a management consultancy, but an organization that does analytics, business operations, design, marketing, product innovation, technology and engineering, talent, human resources. So this particular campaign is very powerful. This is a slightly different one from Canva and from Apple. Just to recount, Canva's place in the world. Apple is your place at Apple. Bain is more around you and developing you and doing things that you can do. What are you striving towards? And I think that's one of the most powerful components, because what they talk about here is building careers you never imagined. Whether it be in whatever of these areas, you can explore all of these fantastic different types of roles. You can hear from people, and again, using multimedia, this is a really interesting video talking about all the different experiences of people with Bain. This particular person went away and came back with kids. There are others who've done very different things. There's a video here of this doctor who got to know the healthcare system is now on the other side advising organizations. So there's a real engagement here. And as here we said, build the career you've never imagined. There's lots of different career stories. Meet your future peers. So there's an invitation to have a look around. And they talk about best places to work. So they're actually going out. We just had a look at Seek, for example, and what people are saying. This is what people are saying about Bain & Co. And when you look at their job description, so even a machine learning engineer this is quite a technical role. And they're already pitching it rather than just telling you what you need to do. They talk about what you can expect from us. People-centered team players, positive impact, playful. We'd love if. So it's very personable. And so it's starting to get you to think about having a conversation with the organization rather than it being a recruitment activity. And now we start getting down to the brass tacks of what's actually required in the role. But the power of this campaign really does lie in that consistency all the way through. However, one of the things, and there's always a however in these analyses that I've done, there is a market perception of Bain that they work you extremely hard. Yes, it's very rewarding, but it's a very, very intense role that seriously bright people work there. And therefore, their challenge is making sure that people realize that, yes, we offer you fantastic opportunities, but you're going to dedicate yourself to them. And you're going to be really engaged with our business to make sure that happens. And while that's very, very powerful, it is incumbent upon Bain during the recruitment process to make sure that people actually really understand what's required. Because we can talk about our people, and there's a lot of different people all over the world who will share with you their experience. It'll talk about those career stories right the way through, so you can get to understand how how people have developed in the organization, which again is very powerful. But we need to make sure that in the recruitment process of an organization like this, that values exchange is really understood. You'll be supported, you'll be given great opportunities. It's a fantastic place where you can grow and strive to do things differently and have careers you never imagined. But it's going to take work, and there is a high bar to entry. That's the value proposition that will be very attractive to that right caliber of people that this organization is trying to recruit. And that's why we thought it was a really powerful campaign.
Thank you for listening. If you are interested in learning more from the most attractive employers and leading experts in the area, then be sure to check EBstarsAcademy.com and dive deeper into the world of employer branding with us. See you there.
So, Barbara, did I cover off what we needed to?
Yeah, it was wonderful. It's like really, really. I was just listening and looking at, because I love the work you've done, and great examples. Some of them I know, but very, very crucial points for those who build the messaging through the channel, starting from career website, what to do, what not to do. So it's even better. It's like lesser you can learn from others. And thank you for choosing and picking these examples. I just have a question for you. Just while we're going through the examples, I was thinking, that's good question. Maybe it's a bit of surprise for you, but it's like, let's say you were to build your ideal messaging, like career website, then and job offer, because that's on on career website. So what would you choose, the best 5 things out of these 5 websites you just shown? How would you approach that? Or maybe 3 things, like just to ask, just to sum up.
3 things. I think one of the I think Bain has the best pitch up front in terms of this is what we can do. So I think they've done a very good job. I would suggest, just using these 5 as an example, I think Canva's done a very good job of talking about the organization being more than just your role there. But I think none of them necessarily do a good enough job of that values exchange, of the hard work. So I always, when we do some scripts, for example, for hiring managers, we say, okay, so here's all the good stuff. Here's the stuff that's not so attractive that we need you to make sure you're comfortable with. So we strive to offer something that from every now and then, and we've even put this into some of our work, we say it's not always going to be easy, or there are going to be times when you're going to have to work long hours, really calling out the blunt stuff. There are going to be times when, unfortunately, it's all hands on deck. But on the other side, we have all these other benefits. So I think one of the elements, there has to be a focus on the realistic job preview that we want people to have, because you don't want to be in a situation where people have an unrealistic expectation of what the organisation can offer, because they don't stay. And EVP is as much about retention as recruitment.
Yeah, and that's perfect point. It's like the same with our job. We're trying to convince people in community, but also our client. Just the messaging is also about saying you don't. We're not for you if you don't like this and this. It's just about building the auto-selective message to candidates, negative auto-selective message. It's like, just to minimize the attrition, the flight risk, because you are just, and so it's like the attrition. Thinking about attrition start with the communication you're sending to the market. Because if you just oversell it, if people are joining and they're not happy with daily job is so there's
that's exactly right. And one of the other elements that I think these campaigns did particularly well, all of them did particularly well, they're not trying to be attractive to everybody. They're trying to be attractive to the people that are going to make a difference, because that's the other element we see often with employer branding campaigns. It's trying to be all things to all people. There's a lot of offers around flexibility, around diversity, around remote working from home benefits, etc. And we're actually trying to pull people back to say, yes, okay, that's part of it, but what are the things that are going to get people beyond that? Because that's almost like icing on the cake. In some cases, it's actually just hygiene factors. What's going to get you to do that little bit extra? And I think we've seen a couple of campaigns that have been able to do that and just inspire you to take that next step. But the last component is you could just see which campaigns were easy to walk through. And that's another thing. Just you're leading people down your garden path. You're showing people your house via your webpage. And the easier and cleaner and attractive it is, and where they open the kitchen cupboard where they expect the glasses will be to get a glass of water, and if it's there, then that's great. You want things to be where people expect them to be. And that's an important piece, because we have looked at some other pages and some other companies, and it's just too hard. You get lost, or they get so focused on what they want to tell you, they forget it's about the visitor's journey, not theirs.
Perfect. Yeah, that's totally true. I agree. Wow, that was a journey through the career website of your choice. Thank you very much for showing it to us, and great analysis before. It was so insightful, and I get my inspiration too. So thank you very much for that. And hopefully see you at the festival or somewhere in a digital world. If you want to reach Malcolm, just go for his LinkedIn. Probably that's the easiest way. Yeah, and if you've got any questions about the particular sites or how to sell the EVP, I recommend contacting Malcolm. So yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for being with us, and see you next episode.